The woman glanced at her husband, who gave her an encouraging nod. Taking a step forward, she said, "I believe in treating everyone with respect, whether it's in this office, on the street, or—" Her eyes locked on the man. On the bus. Gasps rippled across the room. The man's heart pounded as he realized his actions were about to come to light in a way he never expected. The room was thick with silence, all eyes darting between the woman and the man. He felt a sinking weight in his chest as the realization hit him. She was addressing him. The CEO folded his arms, his expression calm but unreadable. "It seems there was an incident this morning that needs addressing," he added, his tone measured. The woman took a deep breath and continued, "Respect isn't optional. It's a value we expect in every interaction, no matter the setting." Her words hung in the air, cutting through the man's growing panic. Sometimes, a small moment can reveal a lot about a person's character. The man stood frozen, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But instead of calling him out by name, she smiled faintly and said, "Let's use this as a reminder to treat everyone with kindness, because you never know who might be counting on you." The CEO chimed in, "And in this company, how you treat people matters as much as your work." The meeting ended, and the man lingered, guilt eating at him. But just as he prepared to leave, the woman walked past, pausing briefly. "Think about what I said," she said softly, leaving him stunned. As he watched her leave, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than a lesson. It was a second chance he wasn't sure he deserved. As the man left the conference room, her words echoed in his mind. The weight of his actions felt heavier now, not because he'd been caught, but because he realized how much his behavior reflected who he was. He thought back to the bus, the woman standing there, calm but dignified, even as he dismissed her. He'd seen it as a moment of convenience for himself, nothing more. Now it was clear how much it mattered. Over the next weeks, he made subtle but genuine efforts to change. He offered help where it was needed, treated others with patience, and, most importantly, reflected on the type of person he wanted to be. The woman never brought up the incident again, but her example had already left a lasting mark. In the end, the lesson was simple but powerful. Kindness isn't just about grand gestures, it's about the choices we make every day. Imagine this: a crowded bus, a visibly pregnant woman struggling to find a seat, and a man sitting comfortably, refusing to budge. What happens next is a moment neither of them will ever forget. The man, dismissive and rude, has no idea who this woman is, just another stranger in his eyes. But what if she's not just anyone? What if she's someone who holds his future in her hands? As passengers watch the scene unfold in uncomfortable silence, the woman remains composed, her eyes quietly observing the man's behavior. Little does he know, she's about to walk into his workplace later that day, where her identity will turn his world upside down. How will this encounter play out? Will the man realize the weight of his actions before it's too late? Stay tuned to uncover how a single moment can change everything. As the bus rattled on, the man glanced at the woman again, irritated by her silent presence. "Why should I give up my seat? She's not my problem," he muttered under his breath, loud enough for those nearby to hear. The woman, still calm, simply shifted her weight and gripped the rail tightly. Other passengers exchanged uneasy glances, but no one stepped in. The air felt heavy, thick with unspoken judgment. What no one on the bus knew was that the woman wasn't just an ordinary passenger. Her life was worlds apart from the man who refused her a seat. She was married to a respected entrepreneur who had recently hired new staff, including a man with a reputation for being difficult. As the bus pulled into the final stop, the woman stepped off quietly, her face giving away nothing. The man had no idea that his day was about to take an unexpected turn. Later that morning, the man strode confidently into work, his usual cocky demeanor on full display. He greeted a few co-workers with casual jokes, oblivious to the hushed whispers that rippled through the office as soon as he walked by. Something was different today, but he didn't notice. Meanwhile, in a private conference room, the woman from the bus sat with her husband, reviewing files for an important meeting. She hadn't shared her earlier experience yet, unsure how to process the encounter. Her mind kept replaying the man's dismissive words and the way he had avoided her gaze. When the meeting was announced, the staff hurried in, including the man, who settled into his chair with an air of nonchalance. He froze the moment the woman walked into the room, her posture commanding respect. Their eyes met briefly, and his stomach dropped. This was no coincidence. She was here for a reason. The room fell silent as she began to speak, her calm yet authoritative tone drawing everyone's attention. The man shifted uncomfortably in his chair, trying to avoid eye contact, but it was impossible to ignore her presence. She introduced herself as the wife of the company's CEO and outlined the purpose of the meeting, an important project requiring everyone's collaboration. Her professionalism was impeccable, but there was an undeniable tension in the air, especially for one person in the room. The man's mind raced as he pieced it all together. His memory of the bus ride flooded back, every dismissive word and action playing on repeat. He couldn't believe it. The same woman he had refused to help now stood before him as someone who held significant authority over his career. As the meeting progressed, her gaze briefly settled on him, not with anger, but with a quiet intensity that made him feel exposed. What would she do next? As the meeting wrapped up, she handed out tasks, delegating responsibilities with precision. When she addressed the man, her tone remained neutral, but there was a faint pause before she spoke his name, just enough to make him sweat. "I'll need you to lead this portion of the project," she said, sliding a document toward him. He nodded stiffly, muttering an awkward, "Of course." Just when he thought the worst was over, the CEO himself entered the room, his energy commanding as he greeted everyone. "Before you leave," the CEO began, "there's something my wife and I want to address." The man froze in place, his hands tightening around the document.